Let's talk about the Gaza ceasefire deal. This was the reaction in Gaza when the news broke.
أنا إلي سنة ونص نازحة في المستشفى. من سنة ونص ما سمعتش ولا خبر حلو زي هذا الخبر. أنا وكل الشعب الفلسطيني فرحانين على هذا الخبر.
Everyone was celebrating and shouting, and people were coming, near me asking, is it real? Is it a real ceasefire?
ممكن أن نخلع هذه الخوذة ميادة التي أرهقتني طوال هذه الفترة، وأيضا هذا الدرع الذي كان جزء من جسدي خلال هذه المدة.
A lot of people in Israel welcomed the news too, including the families of those held captive in Gaza.
I hope the nightmare is over.
Although others in Israel have been protesting against the ceasefire. The aim of this deal is to permanently end the war.
Let me say it again, a permanent end of the war.
But there's a lot that still needs to happen to get to that point, including final sign-off from the Israeli government.
There are a number of challenges. This, at any moment, can be derailed for even the most minute detail.
So what's in the ceasefire deal? And what are some of the challenges people are warning about?
It is with pleasure that
This was the moment that Qatar's prime minister, one of the mediators, announced that Israel and Hamas had reached a deal on Gaza. Now, as we record this, there's plenty we still don't know. No final document has been published, some details are still being finalized, and Israel's government hasn't formally approved the deal yet. The agreement is actually very similar to a ceasefire proposal that US President Joe Biden made in May last year. But there are lots of reports that it was pressure on Israel from incoming US President Donald Trump that made the difference this time.
What we do know is that this isn't going to be without reward, that Trump is going to reward Israel.
And that could include, from the Trump administration, a green light on further annexation of occupied Palestinian territory or occupied Syrian territory.
So here's what we know so far. The deal is structured in 3 stages, and the pause in fighting is due to start on January 19th. Stage 1 is meant to last 6 weeks. 33 Israeli captives, including women, children, and the elderly, will be released by Hamas and other groups. That's according to the Qatari Prime Minister. In return, Israel will release Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. There are reports it might be around 1,000 or more. Israel will start withdrawing its troops from populated areas in Gaza. That means Palestinians should be able to travel around the Strip more freely. Many are desperate to go and see what, if anything, is left of their homes and neighborhoods. Remember, 90% of Gaza's population of more than 2 million people has been displaced.
We will be shocked. We will be faced by the huge and the massive destruction everywhere. I was talking just to people here after the announcement of the ceasefire, and many of them told me that I will go to the north of Gaza in order to bury my kids who are still under the rubble, to visit the graves or to make graves for my family who are still under the rubble.
Stage 1 is also about starting to address the dire humanitarian crisis in Gaza. There's supposed to be a surge in aid deliveries.
Something like 600 trucks of aid a day. Again, nowhere near as sufficient as what Gaza actually needs, but it's still a lot better than what is currently getting in right now.
So that's stage 1. It's also during this period that negotiations are supposed to start for stage 2, focusing on reaching a permanent end to the war. It would involve Hamas releasing all the remaining living captives, including male soldiers, Israel releasing more Palestinian prisoners, and Israel withdrawing all of its forces from Gaza. If the two sides manage to get that far, then they'd move on to stage 3, with Hamas returning the bodies of any remaining dead captives and working out a long-term reconstruction plan for Gaza. So that's the outline of how it's supposed to work, in theory. But what will it take in practice for this deal to hold?
I believe that it all depends on the parties of the agreement and acting in good faith.
This could just very much well be a humanitarian pause where we see phase 1 being more of a symbolic gesture, and then, there's absolutely no guarantee that we'll actually see phase 2 or phase 3 pan out.
But there are obstacles to overcome even before stage 1 begins. The Israeli government was supposed to confirm the deal on Thursday morning, but a vote in the cabinet was postponed. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed the delay on Hamas, accusing them of going back on some details. Hamas said there was no basis to his claims and that it remains committed to the deal.
It looks a lot like a politically manufactured crisis. It is very on brand for Mr. Netanyahu to provide different interpretations to different people.
Well, this security cabinet meeting is more than a day delayed, and that's because of internal fighting within Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition. But nonetheless, the premier's office did release a statement saying that he has confirmation from the mediators that all of the outstanding issues have been resolved. Netanyahu had informed the family members of Israeli captives that the deal will be underway.
If we look at the bigger picture, there are even more potential challenges. The current deal doesn't actually provide solutions to the really hard questions. It just provides a framework to talk about them while there's a pause in fighting. It's things like, what will it actually take for Israel to fully withdraw all its forces from Gaza? It's supposed to do that in stage 2, but we know that some people in the Israeli government oppose that. Who will run Gaza and be in charge of the security there? And will there be a role for Hamas? Keep in mind that Israel's stated aim of the war was to eliminate Hamas, something the outgoing U.S. Secretary of State admitted has not happened.
We assess that Hamas has recruited almost as many new militants as it has lost.
I think everybody sees that Israel's objective in Gaza, with all of the military that it's pushed and the destruction that it's caused, has not brought Israel any closer to removing Hamas from power or providing real security.
Whatever the chances of this deal sticking, for now the families of Israeli captives are feeling more hopeful, and the people of Gaza are counting on a reprieve from 15 months of relentless Israeli attacks that have killed more than 46,000 people. Almost 100 were killed in the 24 hours after the deal was announced.
The worst part was bombing and killing. Here we are facing the famine, the starvation, the lack of food, medical supplies. You can't imagine the severity and the difficulty of the situation here.